Hey and welcome back to the final chapter of the NieR Automata 2B cosplay series, where I attempt to make 2B's costume out of latex. In this video, we will be making a two-colored leotard with puff sleeves. As usual, I did some design sketches, as this helps me to visualize everything before I start making the pattern. This design consists of different colors and thicknesses. The top part is going to be 0.5mm black latex, the lower part 0.5mm metallic white, which just means that it has some glitter in it. The sleeves and the collar will be 0.35mm black, and we will have some 0.25mm translucent smoky gray in the chest design, as well as 0.5mm transparent latex at the back design. For the silver design, I used the double-sided black and silver latex that I used in the circle skirt video, and what is not showing in this drawing is that we will also add a zipper to the back. Now, when it comes to drafting the pattern, I would highly suggest using an existing leotard pattern as a starting point and modifying from there, or if you want to draft your own, you'll need at least the U-bend measurement, the length of your sleeves, the length of your collar, the measurement from the top to the hips and the waist, the length of the top and the bottom pieces, and the size of the chest design. You would also need the width of your shoulders, chest, waist, hips, and your arm circumference. For the back, you also need to know the length of the top and the bottom pieces, as well as the size of the back design and the length of the zipper. Here is the first version of the leotard pattern I drafted, and before I cut into my latex, I wanted to make a mock-up using spandex first. Spandex is a great material to test the pattern with because it has stretch to it, so it behaves a bit like latex, and usually it is not that expensive either. I did record me drafting the pattern and making this leotard, so if you're interested in seeing how I did it, let me know in the comments. For this video, however, I just want to show you what I learned from the mock-up process. So when I tried on the mock-up piece, I noticed that the pattern was too long and too wide, the neck hole was too big, and the armholes were too tight. I'm not going to talk too much about armhole or sleeve drafting, as it is a topic that would deserve its own video, but also because my way of working is more intuitive and sleeves are something I might draft a couple of times before I get them right, so I don't feel like I'm doing it the right way anyway. And that's also the reason I like to do the mock-ups first. So I did some modifications to the pattern and cut out two identical patterns. This time I didn't draft the neck hole yet. Then starting with the front, I measured where I want the black top part to end and the white bottom part to start. Then I started drafting the place for the chest design using these French curves. Someone in the comment section told me to get these after they saw me struggling with all kinds of round objects, and I have to say that these had been on my shopping list for a long time. However, I also wanted to show people that you don't necessarily need to have all the right tools to create something. Well, now I have these, but I have to say that there's a bit of a learning curve to using them. I decided to separate the bottom part of the black piece into 3 pieces. I rounded the seams at the top of the pieces, so when I glue these together, they should result in a gentle cupping effect at the chest. Next, I started working on the back pattern. I'm finding the center and placing this design pattern that I drew on my computer and printed out on it. I'm deciding where I want the pattern to be based on how much space I will need for the neck hole at the top and where my zipper would end. I'm then measuring where I want the white bottom to start from. Next, I'm cutting out the pattern pieces and labeling them. I also wrote down which pieces need more seam allowance so that I can add that to the latex pieces, but later I noticed that I got confused and had added seam allowance to both of the pieces that I would be gluing together like you would when you would be sewing fabric together, but now that we are gluing the pieces, I only needed to do that for the other piece. Like I said earlier, I will not talk about the sleeves in depth, but here I'm modifying a sleeve pattern I had made for my mockup and making it much bigger so that I can get a puffier sleeve. There are surprisingly many styles of puff sleeves and they all require a slightly different pattern, but the main idea is to make the sleeve much wider than the armhole and then gather all the sleeve material before attaching it to the armhole. All of that bunched up material will then create the puff sleeve. Then I had drawn and printed out the pattern for the chest design and cut out the pattern pieces for the front as well. Next, I traced the patterns on latex, added any needed seam allowances and cut all the pieces out. I'm cutting out the pattern pieces for both the back and the front designs, and I cut out the black part of the designs from the latex that was left behind when we cut the holes for our designs. I used my rotary cutter on paper and I'm not sure if that is okay. I know that you shouldn't be cutting paper with fabric scissors or they will become dull, but I'm not sure what the consensus is with rotary cutters. If you know, let me know in the comments. This front design was a bit confusing at first because what we actually want from this is the negative space we have created between the shapes that we just drew, and those shapes will become holes that will show the translucent gray latex. So I then glued the gray latex behind the black piece we just cut out, and now I'm gluing on the small black parts. I'm using the piece I cut these from as a stencil so I get them on their right places. Then I assembled the lower part of the black top by gluing those three pieces together. As you can see, the curves we made to the pattern are creating a slight cupping effect. Then I attached the top and the bottom of the black top piece to the chest design. What was not shown here was that I cut off a piece from the bottom of the chest design piece, which means that now that we glue the bottom piece to it, it will leave a hole. Then I attached the white bottom part to the black top part. Next, I started working on the back design. This looked a bit tricky at first with so many moving parts, but I arranged the pieces the way I wanted them to be and taped them on the right side of the back piece from the parts that overlap the black latex. I also used a lot of masking tape to keep the design in place, because next I would flip the whole thing around and apply glue to it. I would only apply glue to the design, not on the sides of the hole yet. I also didn't apply glue on the transparent piece, so only time will tell if the bond will hold. I then flipped the piece over and removed the tape. After that, I tucked the extra latex under the black latex and flipped the whole piece over again. Now I could glue both the extra flaps and the transparent piece to the black piece. Then I attached the white bottom piece to the black top piece. Next, I carved out a tiny bit of neckline, just enough for me to be able to have some clear shoulder seams. I then glued the seams together and let it cure overnight. Next day, I pulled my head through the neckline and traced where I would like the neckline to be. I then cut the neck hole following the lines. I also shaped the shoulder line a bit by cutting the seams in an angle, and then I reattached the shoulder seams again. Now that we have our front and back pieces attached by the shoulders, we can start working on the sleeves. As I mentioned earlier, to make puff sleeves, we need to gather the sleeves before attaching them to the armhole. I'm spreading a bit of glue on the top part of the sleeve, and once the glue gets sticky, I'm pleating the latex and pressing it against the glue to make the pleat stick. I then attached the sleeve to the armhole. I'm pleating the bottom of the puff sleeve as well and attaching it to a 3/4 sleeve, which is basically just a straight rectangular piece. Once the puff sleeve was attached, I covered the pleats with a strip of latex to strengthen the seam and make it more comfortable against skin. Next, I cut out and glued together the turtleneck collar. Once I had attached it to the leotard, I marked where I wanted to glue the zipper. If you want to know more about how to glue a zipper, check out my zipper tutorial. Next, we need to attach the side and sleeve seams. I probably didn't hit the record button when I started doing this, so here's a visual illustration for which parts to close. However, when I tried the leotard on, the side seams busted, so I got another chance to record this. This time I went over the latex with some sanding paper to roughen up the surface, and I took extra care to rub the solvent in the latex after that. Someone in the comment section suggested thinning the glue with the solvent for a stronger bond, and I was thinking about doing so, but I hope that I might have achieved a similar effect when I dissolved the old glue with the solvent. Then I added the silver design on the white bottom. Again, I had drawn this design on my computer and printed the pattern. First, I cut separate pieces for the front and the back, but they didn't line up at the seams, so I ended up adding some small pieces to make the transition look better. However, I didn't like the idea of having these small patches, and the design didn't really reinforce the side seams, so I removed the silver latex in one piece and drafted a one whole piece based on it. This way, I was able to get a design that wrapped around the side seams and strengthened the waist area. And that seemed to do the trick. I'm actually quite surprised how well this leotard turned out, because before I started this video series, I actually had not worked with latex that much, but that's why I have also enjoyed making this series, as latex is a very trendy material right now, not only among different subcultures, but celebrities and mainstream designers as well, and I have a feeling that it will become even more popular in the future, especially when it comes to cosplay. Working with latex has definitely been very different from the usual methods of making garments, and I really enjoyed learning new skills along the way. If you're interested, take a look at my other videos from this series to see how I made each piece, and don't forget to subscribe for more videos. Thank you so much for watching, and happy crafting!